If you've been watching my channel for a while, it is no secret that Star Wars games provided a huge impact on my life, becoming the Jedi of your dreams to an unknown scummy smuggler thwarting the Empire. The earlier Star Wars games have been an influence in both my passions and interests. While there were games in the past that allowed you to participate in dogfighting against the Empire or even Rebel Alliance, none have been fully realized as Star Wars Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo 64. As the name implies, it throws the player into the shoes of Rogue Squadron on a plethora of missions against the Empire, ranging from menial defense missions to rescuing defect Empire members. Age has weathered down the original Rogue Squadron in favor of the future releases of the series from defunct developer Factor 5. With both a Nintendo 64 and PC release at similar launch windows, the only thing I can do moving forward is a port versus port. A video series highlighting the differences and similarities of the vanilla and port versions of a singular title. Our story takes us back to 1996, as we discover the origins of Rogue Squadron for the Nintendo 64 and Windows PC. The Nintendo 64 had several early titles that were hailed to be classics of today. Titles like Wave Race and Super Mario 64 defined their genre of gameplay while setting the Nintendo 64 as a powerful contender against Sony's PlayStation. Shadows of the Empire was no different, selling about 1 million copies and is the third best-selling 64 game in '97. Naturally, Nintendo and LucasArts wanted to cash in and expand the Star Wars franchise on the 64. Taking inspiration from the flight levels of Shadows, developer Factor 5 was tasked by LucasArts themselves to create the first Star Wars arcade flight combat. Upon final release in 1998, gave players 16 levels to traverse through, along with crafts like the X-Wing and A-Wing to combat with, and later, a Naboo starfighter which was released later via a cheat code during the release of 1999's Phantom Menace to promote the game. The game truly was a first of its kind, with its fast-paced dogfighting and tense moments shooting down TIE interceptors and rescuing defecting Empire officials like Crix Madine from the clutches of the Empire. The variety of level design and craft selection made this a worthy title to play on the 64. During late development, Factor 5 faced a difficult snag, where they realized they were developing Rogue Squadron on Nintendo's expansion pack, meaning the game could not function at the time without the pack itself. To do so, Factor 5 implemented compression tools to fit this on the cartridge. Sound effects were toned down and did not have the audio impact that many 64 titles could have due to hardware limitations. At the same time, graphical compression was implemented, like interlacing. Thank you guys so much for letting me know on my Resident Evil 2 port versus port, by the way. During some of the ship's flight patterns here that allowed for the cart to save space in both storage and RAM so the game could run properly. The draw distance is not a strong suit of the 64, so expect random enemy pop-in due to the fog of war. As previously mentioned, Rogue Squadron began development on the expansion pack, so naturally would take advantage of this feature. Without the expansion pack, the game runs at a measly 240p, which is difficult experience to play. While it is true that the frame rate is better and easier to stomach, trying to target TIEs or probe droids is a challenge in itself, since it's visually difficult to pinpoint in comparison to using an expansion pack. Using the high resolution feature in the menu in combination with the expansion pack unlocks the game in 480i. While the compression tools are very much present using the expansion pack, the 480i resolution is very much welcome in fighting against enemies and detecting them on the map. Frame rate tends to dip below the norm on heavier maps with considerably more enemy ships. It is recommended to play using the expansion pack for visual improvement, even though it is not the ideal way to play due to the frame rate. For many people, the 64 controller is not the most intuitive due to the nature of the analog and some button placement, so your subjective mileage will vary depending on your preference. If these features are a significant turnoff to playing Rogue Squadron on the 64, there is a solution I have for you on the PC. PC titles in the late 90s were riddled with problems and compatibility issues to play on modern hardware, but Rogue Squadron is an exception to this. The benefits of playing Rogue Squadron on PC make an impressive N64 title an astoundingly remarkable one to play on PC. Before I begin, it is important to note that I tested this on a Windows 10 computer on my Ryzen 1600X, so while mileage varies on compatibility, with a couple of mods it was pretty simple to run this title. Upon opening the game, I found it difficult to record footage due to natively switching to full screen despite the windowed mode toggle. OBS made it difficult to capture on a single monitor setup, so to combat this, I use a program called DXWND that forcibly opens the program to whatever aspect ratio I desire. In the video settings of the game, it also goes up to 1280 by 1020 resolution 4:3, but it is possible to force the game in 1080p, or in my case, 2560 by 1080 due to my ultra-wide monitor, and works surprisingly well. I will leave a link down below so you guys can try out how to properly play this in your desired resolution. Alright, now that we got this under our belt, let us get into the actual differences on the PC. Booting the title gives you a brand new GUI well suited for the PC layout. Starting the game, audio settings, as well as video are all very easily accessible with no load times at all compared to the sluggish menu of the N64. It does lack the style and polish the N64 has with movie stills in the background. Here's one problem I had when playing the game. I do not recommend playing Rogue Squadron with the mouse and keyboard for several reasons. While some of the buttons can be remapped, the left mouse button defaults to both shooting regular lasers as well as proton torpedoes. This cannot be remapped at all, so you are stuck with this. Moving around on the ship is a horrible experience when playing on the PC. The game properly maps the Y-axis to the up and down tilt of the mouse, but the X-axis physically turns the ship either left or right. This is the equivalent of holding R on the N64 button to tilt instead of right. A similar result is found when using left and right arrows on the keyboard, causing the ship to tilt in that direction. Just in a fit of rage, when I was about to disown this game, simply connecting a PS4 or Xbox One controller should work with proper button mapping and makes the game work beautifully. You can see a comparison here as to how difficult mouse and keyboard controls are compared to a controller. The question is, however, what differences can I get from playing on PC? Besides a solid resolution and great controller layout, the game runs at a very fluid 60 FPS with no hindrance. You do start to notice some funny design flaws that are left due to the nature of the game. Draw distance, for example, is astounding for this port, but tons of texture pop-in and lack of foliage makes this game a bit barren when flying around. It is not too noticeable since combat can get pretty intense in some sections, but it is something noteworthy. Flight patterns of the NPC ships also give me a bit of a chuckle. Going back to the 64 version, enemy ship patterns seem to flow pretty organically, and this was masked due to both the draw distance and frame rate. When you speed it up to 60 FPS on PC, enemies start to look a little like Buzz and Bees, which did take me out of the experience of playing a Star Wars game. Overall, I was pretty surprised to see that Rogue Squadron PC is a high quality conversion of the N64 port in almost every way. The game can be changed to desired resolution with modern controls on top of visual fidelity, adding so much to the experience. While this is my take, my question is, which version do you guys feel is the best that suits your needs? And to find that out, let us do a classic side-by-side comparison of both versions to see what works for you. No game audio will be played due to copyright, so enjoy some synthwave for your pleasure. that about covers it for another edition of Port vs. Port. I've realized I've worked on so many N64 titles, and while Rogue Squadron on the 64 wasn't the first one, Rebel Strike was my first on the GameCube. I really did enjoy playing it, even though it is kind of scuffed compared to the other ones. PC port kind of redeems it, and it makes it that much more enjoyable because of the frame rate and, you know, better resolution, blah, 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 all that, you know, all that jazz. But no, thank you guys so much for honestly taking the time to look at this video. I hope it really brings you a lot of joy during these crazy times. I apologize for not really releasing as much videos. I will not lie, COVID hasn't been the best for me mentally, as it's been not only hard to, you know, create videos that I actually do love doing as a hobby, but it's been kind of a little bit of a battle. But now I have a little bit more motivation to be working on stuff. I will be working on a new video, Super Mario 64, Port vs. Port, which I'm extremely excited to start working on very soon. I have a Resident Evil 1 coming on the way. It's a lot of things that I want to do, so much to do, so little time kind of thing, and, you know, even the mental strength to do that. But I hope you guys enjoyed. All of my socials are down below. If you're interested in following me in any one of them, you can find them down below. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you very soon, and definitely take care.